Hello everyone, it's me again. Beyond the Gates is always full of shocking secrets. But what if Lynette's appearance is hiding something truly terrifying? Who could be behind it all? And who is the real target, Bill or Hayley? Stay with me, because this story may be darker than it first appears. At Fairmont Crest, the most dangerous secrets rarely begin with gunfire or a loud scandal. They usually begin with something small enough to fit in the palm of a hand. For Randy, Lynette's phone was supposed to be nothing more than an object that could help him regain control. But from the very moment he touched it, he stepped into a darkness even he did not fully understand. What makes this situation so frightening is not simply what may be inside the phone, but the possibility that it could connect every scattered clue into a far larger picture than Randy ever imagined. At first, he may believe that as long as he gets hold of the evidence, he can control Lynette, cut off the threat hanging over Hayley, and keep everything from falling apart any further. But the closer he gets to the truth, the more he is forced to face a deeper fear. Perhaps Lynette was never the one driving this story at all. Perhaps she was only one link in a chain, placed exactly where she needed to be to create pressure, push Hayley into dependence, and, more importantly, draw Bill step by step into a trap that had already been carefully arranged long in advance. That possibility makes the entire story feel much heavier, because if Lynette is only acting on someone else's orders, then the person behind her must be someone with patience, power, and a motive strong enough to build an entire marriage on calculated manipulation. At Fairmont Crest, not everyone is capable of something like that. To control other people without ever revealing a face, that person would need to understand every weakness in every player. They would have to know what Hayley needs, what Bill is willing to believe, what Lynette fears, and how far Randy can be lured before he realizes he has already gone too far. Someone like that does not merely want to create trouble. They want to control the ending. That is why this no longer feels like a simple blackmail scheme or a murky relationship. It begins to look like a structured plan, layered, deliberate, and directed by someone moving quietly in the shadows. The most alarming part is that person's silence. The less they reveal themselves, the more it proves how confident they are that everyone else is already running through a maze they designed. Within that entire scheme, Bill seems like the one target who cannot be replaced. The real question is no longer whether he is being targeted, but why he was chosen in the first place. A man like Bill does not only possess money or status. He carries reputation, influence, and a path large enough to attract many enemies. When a man standing that high is knocked down, the cost of his fall is never limited to personal pain. It spreads. If this is personal revenge, then the one behind it must be carrying a hatred so deep that they do not want to kill Bill outright. They want him to watch his life collapse piece by piece. If this is an attack on his legal career, then the goal is even clearer. Destroy his credibility and make his name forever associated with scandal, error, and humiliation. And if this is meant to drag Bill into a scandal big enough to shake all of Fairmont Crest, then the mastermind is not simply trying to ruin Bill. They are sending a message that no one in this place is ever truly safe, no matter how grand the gates around them may seem. That is what makes Hayley the hardest figure to define. On the surface, she appears to be the person benefiting most from her marriage to Bill. Naturally, that makes suspicion fall on her first. But the closer one looks, the more it seems possible that Hayley, too, may have been pushed into a position she mistook for her own choice. If she was a willing accomplice from the beginning, then she is not only ambitious but cold enough to enter that marriage while hiding a private plan in her heart. But if she is merely a pawn, then Hayley's tragedy becomes even more painful. Because the worst kind of manipulation is not being used once. It is living under the illusion that you are in control of your own destiny, only to realize in the end that every step you took was already being directed. When a woman begins to understand that the life she is living may be nothing more than one square on someone else's game board, panic does not always come all at once. Sometimes it arrives slowly, then sinks deep. She may try to keep lying to herself, clinging to the idea that everything can still be saved. She may stay silent because she fears that if she speaks, she will lose everything. Or she may confess, but even that confession would no longer be pure, because it would come too late, after too much damage has already been done. If the truth is that Bill's marriage was set up as a trap months ago, then Bill's reaction will not simply be the anger of a betrayed husband. What would wound him most deeply is the realization that he was manipulated. A man who is used to being in control, used to reading other people, used to maintaining the image of strength and clarity, would find it nearly impossible to accept that he himself had been led along. Betrayal is always sharp, but the humiliation of discovering that you were living inside a performance you believed was real cuts even deeper. It destroys not only trust in the person beside you, but trust in your own judgment. For Bill, that could create a far more violent reaction than anyone around him expects. He would not only want to know who lied to him. He would want to know when it began, how it was done, and how much of his present life was staged. And when a man like Bill is pushed to the point where he doubts every recent memory, the cruelty in the way he strikes back could become a storm that sweeps away everyone connected to it. For Randy, meanwhile, that phone is not a key to freedom. It is evidence that tears him in 3 directions at once. If he gives it to Hayley, he may help her prepare for what is coming, but he may also be helping her continue to hide the truth from Bill. If he hands it to Bill, he may force the truth into the light, but he may also become the one who sets off a destruction too vast to control. If he keeps it for himself, he may believe he is buying time to think, when in reality he is simply giving the secret time to grow deeper roots. The cost of each choice is different, yet all of them lead to the same conclusion. Randy will not come out of this untouched. That is his greatest tragedy. He may tell himself that he is trying to protect others, but the longer he holds the secret, the more blurred the line becomes between protecting someone else and protecting himself. Sometimes people cling to secrets not because of loyalty, but because of a deeply human fear that once the truth erupts, they too will be crushed beneath it. The longer Randy hesitates, the more it becomes clear that he is no longer just an observer. He has become part of the game. Lynette is an even more complicated case, because she seems at once like a victim and like someone who has helped feed the danger. If she kept the recording for self-protection, that suggests she has lived in a dangerous world long enough to understand that no one will truly save her except herself. But if she kept it because she knew there would one day come a moment when she could turn the balance of power in her favor, then Lynette is not nearly as fragile as she appears. She may be the kind of woman who knows how to stay quiet, endure, collect information like a hidden escape route, and wait for the exact moment when it can be used. That ambiguity makes her impossible to fully pity and impossible to fully condemn. Lynette may have been pushed into a game of power, but once she learned the rules, she may also have begun playing it in her own way. And that is what makes her especially dangerous, because a person who knows too much and still has not chosen a side is always the most unpredictable force in the room. When Randy and Hayley are finally forced to confront Lynette, their choice will reveal who they truly are. If they try to protect her, then that means they still believe the truth can come into the light through a path that is less cruel. But if they choose to threaten her in order to force out the name of the person behind everything, then that is the moment they cross a moral line. In situations like these, people often justify themselves by saying they had no other option. But that is exactly the moment when the darkest parts of them begin to surface. Fairmont Crest has never lacked elegant, polished people who know how to appear decent. But when faced with the possibility of losing money, status, marriage, reputation, or power, that decency cracks very quickly. If Lynette is pushed into a corner, she may speak, but her words may not come from courage. They may come from desperation. And if she remains silent, then that only proves the hidden hand behind all of this is even more frightening than anything currently visible. The most suffocating possibility of all is the idea that the person behind the scheme may already know the secret is beginning to leak. A plan built on layers of deception cannot survive unless the person controlling it is watching closely. There is a strong chance that something has already felt wrong to them, that something has begun to move off course. If that is true, Lynette is no longer a useful middle figure. She becomes a liability that may need to be removed. Randy, Hayley, and even Bill could quickly shift from players in the drama to targets who need to be controlled. The terrifying thing about people who hide in the shadows is not that they are physically stronger than everyone else. It is that they act earlier, colder, and without the burden of emotion. Once a secret risks exposure, they do not necessarily have to kill anyone immediately. All it takes is one push at the right moment, one leak, one clever arrangement, one twisted piece of evidence, and people will drag one another into ruin on their own. That is why the final question is no longer a simple matter of who is right and who is wrong. The real question is, who will lose everything once the fog clears? Bill may lose his marriage, his reputation, and his trust in himself. Hayley may lose her security, her confidence, and the illusion that she still has time to turn back. Lynette may lose her place in society, or worse, become the sacrifice offered up to protect a larger power. Randy may lose the most in a quieter way. He may lose the ability to believe that he still stands outside the darkness. Because once he took that phone, once he looked into those secrets, once he hesitated instead of choosing the straightest path, the darkness touched him too. In a plan built on lies, betrayal, and fear, the person who thinks he is hunting the truth can easily become the final prey. And that is the cruelest irony of Fairmont Crest. In this place, the closer people come to the truth, the easier it becomes for them to lose themselves before they ever reach it. All the content I create is purely speculative and based on personal opinions. I appreciate all your contributions and support. Thank you very much. If you haven't followed us yet, please scroll down and subscribe.